Tonight on the live show, we're digging into one of the biggest questions in the Nancy Guthrie case right now. Was there actually some kind of Wi-Fi jamming device used on the night of her abduction? FBI was seen recently back in the neighborhood of Nancy Guthrie was seen in her neighborhood back there just a couple of days ago. Are they investigating this Wi-Fi jamming device, or are they looking into something different? We're going to answer all those questions back here in 60 seconds. All right, everybody, welcome back into Let's Talk Live. Nice to see everybody again here on this Sunday evening, and we're going to get into tonight's show. I want to talk about a couple of days ago, we had FBI and law enforcement back over at Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood, and they were investigating possible interference. There's been some questions of a Wi-Fi jammer, and I'm not sure if you guys know what that is, but we're going to get into all that tonight. I find it curious. And then come to find out, also in the neighborhood, there was a junction box that had looked like it had been fiddled with. And I want to get into all that tonight. We're going to talk about that here on the live show. So let's do this. We'll start out with a video, and I do have a presentation for you guys tonight. Maybe we can get into this and answer some of those questions and actually find out what a Wi-Fi jamming device is. So let's do this video first as a little intro here, and then we'll get into it.
This morning, in the search for new clues, several of Nancy Guthrie's neighbors tell NBC News investigators returned this week asking them about any potential internet issues the night of Nancy's disappearance. The homeowners say the agents told them several neighbors mentioned glitches with their internet that night. One of those neighbors tells us when they checked on their Ring cameras, this one here, the one closest to Nancy's property, said not available during the overnight hours of the abduction.
Here in their backyard, you can actually see Nancy's home. It's that brick house there. Experts tell us it would likely take a professional-grade Wi-Fi jammer to knock out internet all the way to the back of this property.
Here's the jammer. Hold it up here. You turn it on.
Security tech consultant Ted Nearhouse showed us how a Wi-Fi jammer can interfere with internet signal and home surveillance cameras.
And you will see it go out. So that's what it looks like. It'll say not available or something along those lines.
But Nearhouse says he's skeptical a Wi-Fi jammer was used in Nancy's abduction.
If they turned that thing on when they pulled up, you'd never have any video on any camera. So that's why I don't think anything was jammed.
Some online sleuths have pointed out it appears there could be something in the suspect's pocket. We asked the sheriff about that earlier this week.
Did he have a Wi-Fi jammer, a walkie-talkie? Have you been able to figure?
I've not looked at it that closely, but yeah.
Don't know. No. No-nos don't know. I mean, come on. Did they really ask him this question? He has no clue what's going on in this investigation. I mean, come on. We went through this the other night on my live show. If you haven't checked it out, you got to go back and watch that live, and where we kind of broke down the beginning timeline to this case. But he has no idea. Listen to him. I don't know. I have no idea.
I know that my team has looked at it with the FBI, every angle.
Neither the FBI nor the Sheriff's Department have commented on any potential internet issues in the neighborhood. NBC News has also reached out to Ring and has not heard back. This Kreutz, NBC News, Tucson.
All right. So that's where we're at right now. Oh, hang on a little bit more.
A reminder, as always, if you have any information that could be helpful, we are urging you to reach out to the FBI tip line. Again, that's the number, 1-800-CALL-FBI.
He is. He is a PR nightmare. They need better PR over at the Pima County Sheriff's Department. I've been very critical of the sheriff, and I just feel like that he could have done a much better job coordinating with the FBI. And I mean, we heard all the stories, going back and forth. They were working together, then they weren't working together, and then they were again. And it's like, look, you should have just cooperated immediately with the FBI and had them take control of this case, because clearly it is out of your league, in my opinion. And I look at this now, and I go back and I look when I first started covering this case and talking about it. And I said, listen, this is going to be an amateur. It looked very amateurish. What we saw in the film, the suspect comes up at 1:47 a.m., is caught on camera. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, this is going to be very, very amateur. So we ended up finding this guy in like a week. Well, here we are now, 36 days out? 36 days out, and there's no inkling of a suspect. And they raised the reward now. And if you didn't know about this, to over $1 million. It's just over the cusp of $1 million now. And it's like desperate times, desperate measures at this time. But anyway, I want to get back into this. So just a couple of days ago, down on scene, the FBI was back out canvassing the neighborhood, speaking with neighbors and asking about some disruption in their security cameras or in their cable connection. And there was a couple of neighbors that had said, I noticed in and around that time, there were some glitches or something going on with our cameras. So let's get into this. I have a presentation I want to bring up here. We'll talk about Wi-Fi jammers, what they are, what they can do. Do we think that it's possible that one was used? And we'll be able to answer some of those questions tonight. Chasing the feed, I have to agree with you. I no longer think it's an amateur as well either. I don't. I think they would have been caught by now. And initially when I talked about this, I said, look, this is going to be someone that was in the neighborhood that probably knew the neighborhood or did, maintenance around the neighborhood, or was like someone that took, lawn care and just saw this as an opportunity to try to get some money out of this. Now you have to sit here and say, well, who and why? And I know that's kind of dumb to say that, but that is the biggest question, is like, who and why? Why did this happen? Why did this happen to an 84-year-old woman? And the only thing that I can go back on this is turn around and just say, well, you look at Savannah Guthrie. Savannah Guthrie, on paper, if you search the internet, says that she's worth $40 million. Well, that's your money train. That's the money train. But now you have to start thinking, is this something personal? Is this a murder for hire? Was it something like that? But then you go, well, what would an 84-year-old woman do to piss someone off to go to this length? It's very, very, very confusing. I know a lot of people are still confused, and I am as well. I'm getting confused now. I don't know what's going on. Is there justice? As I'm sticking with my theory, it's someone in the neighborhood. I still feel that as well. A lot of people think that the family is still involved as well, too. But let's get into this Wi-Fi tonight, this Wi-Fi jammer. I want to talk about this. So anyway, we have, we'll just do the basic reported facts that happened in this case. So Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, disappeared from her Tucson area home during the early hours of February 1st, 2026. Investigators believe that she was taken from her bed. That is just now recently come out. And we had some inklings of that, of when Savannah talked on one of those videos pleading for her mother. And she even talked about Nancy's blood was found at the home's entrance, and we still know that some DNA and some DNA is still actively being processed. So you have publicly released footage that shows a masked suspect at the front door, and reporting says the camera was checked and obstructed. There have been more than 3,000 tips that have generated just post, a couple of days ago, but no arrest and no announcement of a suspect has been publicly named. Several apparent breaks lead to nowhere. An early detention was not the abductor. We saw that early on in the investigation. There was actually at one point a SWAT intervention at a home, and we've heard from some of those people that have come out and spoken about that. Look, there was probable cause to come in and speak with those people in the capacity that law enforcement did. So fake ransom texts, we had the letters to TMZ appeared unrelated. And then we had the one glove DNA that traced to a nearby restaurant worker. And we thought that was going to be like the linchpin. Like, here we go. You know, we have the DNA off this glove. They go to the lab, they test it. And guess what? It traces back to a restaurant worker that's in the area. And I had this question the other day. Was this person at this restaurant, were they a hit in CODIS? Was there DNA in there? How did they get to that point? We still haven't heard anything about that. We probably never will until this is solved. So we'll move on here. So quick little timeline here. January 31st, last seen, Nancy's last seen at her home. That's what's been reported. February 1st, reported missing suspect captured on doorbell footage. That's at 1:47 a.m. We have the authorities that release a suspect photo, footage and description. They come to find out when the FBI puts out the two adjacent photos, one with a backpack, one without, people go, wait a minute here. Those are two different times. And now they're starting to wonder, the theory is, did this suspect case the neighborhood before they actually went in and abducted Nancy? Were they there, you know, days before, weeks before, months before? That's something that could help and be clarified in this investigation, but they're just not releasing any of this information publicly, which has been very annoying. It's like, come out and just clarify all this stuff. So we have Sheriff Nanos that says investigators are definitely closer. And we heard this the other day in an interview. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I have the poll up there in the chat. I said, do you think investigators are close to naming a suspect? Let's see. 39% of you say yes. 61% of you say no. Say no. So we have the FBI in LA. They came out and this is on March 5th and 6th. They come back out to the neighborhood. They can canvass the neighborhood about the internet and camera glitches. And then as of today, search enters new month, 3,000 plus new tips, no arrest, dead end leans, and the lab work is still continuing. And I talked about that earlier. So moving ahead. So we have the quick official timeline, and I locked this down in my live stream the other night. So we have at 9:48 p.m., Nancy arrives and her garage door opens, marking her return to safety at her residence. At 9:50 p.m., the garage door closes. That's 2 minutes. Garage door closes, signifying the last moment of normalcy before the night's events unfold through the night. At 1:47 a.m., and this is where I talked about the other day, on my live, that this is the most critical point in the investigation, because this is when we know the suspect makes actual contact in and around Nancy's residence. That is the starting point of this investigation, the most critical moment. So the doorbell camera disconnects, creating a crucial gap in surveillance coverage that raises questions about the events. And then at 2:12 a.m., software detects someone as present on camera. And that's what we heard about. Is there a second camera? Is there a second device? Was the camera taken out? Did it trip maybe a beam that's inside the house, like a motion detector? But there's no video of this said 2:12 a.m. event. Not that we know of. Is this something that law enforcement and FBI is holding back? So yet, no recording that available, leading to public speculation and debate. Now, moving along. So this is what I said in my live stream the other night. The anchor timestamps, the key moments that define the time of events. At 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera is disconnected, raising questions about the events that transpired during this critical moment. At 2:12 a.m., the software detects someone on camera. However, no recording is available, and that's what I talked about. Was it a motion sensor? Was it a camera that had a motion sensor on it and the camera wasn't working? What was it? Give us a little bit more information, law enforcement. Give us a little bit more information, FBI, Pima County Sheriff's Department. Please fill us in. What is it? And then at 2:28 a.m., Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker app disconnects from her phone, making another critical point in the unfolding narrative. Okay. Now, let's talk about the video and digital evidence. What has been described publicly? So we have the doorbell and neighborhood camera. Doorbell footage shows a masked suspect at the home. Some neighbor cameras reportedly had missing footage during the critical window. And this is what we're talking about, the Wi-Fi jamming. Is it possible? Could it have been possible? Some neighbor cameras reportedly had missing coverage. Reporting also mentioned a vehicle captured on a nearby camera around the time that was interest. And this was the debate. The key, I call it the Kia Soul debate. I think it's a Kia Soul, and I've talked about this on previous live streams as well. About a week ago, this footage, and you can see where the arrow's pointing here, of this said vehicle that was in and around just miles from the area, right around the time that Nancy Guthrie's her pacemaker disconnects, and this car was leaving from that direction. And I think it's a Kia Soul. Some people say a Land Rover. Some people have said a Nissan Sonata. I don't know. That still hasn't been clarified, but we do know when this came out, law enforcement was like, yeah, we know about it, but we're not really looking into it. And now I guess they're looking into it again. Yeah. So why tech glitches matter? When multiple cameras or networks fail at the same time, investigators may explore routine outages, and that's ISP and the power outage. We have device and cloud issues and deliberate disruptions, tampering, or interference. And come to find out, there is a junction box that's in that neighborhood that looks like it might have possibly been tampered with. And that's some new information that came out in the last couple of days here. And then the investigation triage, not proof of jamming. So again, just throwing speculation. Nothing has been 100% confirmed at this point, but it is a possibility. It could be a possibility in this. So jammer theory, the strongest case for and against. And then we have so why people suspect it. Neighbors were reportedly asked about outage and glitches and missing camera footage. Wireless cameras, cloud updates, and app alerts are vulnerable to signal disruptions during these times. And then theory suggests planning, continuation, and effort to reduce digital evidence. Why experts doubt it. And we just heard this in the video just previous to this. Clearer recovered porch video cuts out against a sustained blackout right at the entry point. And that is the video that we have seen looped over and over and over again, a million times, of that 1:47 a.m. entrance or possible entrance into Nancy's home. And then we have a neighborhood-wide impact would likely require much more powerful gear than a simply portable jammer. And then we have handheld ratio or ordinary outages remains plausible alternative explanation. I mean, in this situation, it would take a lot of equipment to jam all those Wi-Fi, in my opinion, to jam all those Wi-Fi signals that are going on. I mean, you would have to have either a very large piece of equipment or a major outage at that time. So that's the way I look at it. So the best, let's see, I'm going to move on here. So if a jammer was used in general, if a jammer emits radio interference at the same bands of a Wi-Fi device, and you can see that little handheld Wi-Fi device, that's usually what it does, and it has different signals on there because they might not know what the actual signal is at the home, but there's different frequencies that your Wi-Fi can run on. Mine is a dual band, and I don't know the frequencies offhand. I think it's like 2.5 and maybe like a 4.5 or 5. And there's Wi-Fis that have multiple bands on it that you can connect to different bands, so you're not throwing off or draining the signal on another one. So that's what you're seeing here. This probably runs different types of bands on it and can jam and interfere those different frequencies. So effect can include camera feeds dropping, devices disconnecting, and cloud updates failing. And that's what this device is used to do. It does not hack the camera. It basically disrupts the signal path. Real jamming often affects multiple devices nearby rather than one specific isolated camera. So why the theory came up in the situation? Reported not available neighbor footage. We're going to see that here in a second. I'm going to be sharing at the end of this presentation. We'll go to Brian Entin's reporting, and we'll see about that camera that's in the area. Reported internet and camera glitches were in the area. Speculation about a visible device or antenna in the suspect's pocket, and we just saw that in the beginning of this presentation. And these clues may justify testing the theory, but do not prove it. And just a reminder, just a reminder for the live stream, legally operating and selling jammers is illegal and can endanger public safety and communication. Yeah, I mean, we know that, but I got to put that little, I don't urge anybody to go out and buy a Wi-Fi jammer. The FBI might be calling you in this case. So new skeptical reporting on the jammer theory. So we have several experts now say that the jammer theory may be less likely than it first appeared. The biggest reason, investigators recovered the unusable front door video, which does not fit a clean, persistent blackout at a point of entry. They also urged that neighbor-wide disruption would likely require much more powerful and simple than a simple handheld device. And I said that as well, too. And that, I'm very strong on that theory as well, too. I think it would take a hell of a lot of power and a hell of a lot of bandwidth to knock out, several. And you even see the distance on that road of the houses to the road. A lot of these houses sit back, and there's a lot of rock and, cacti or cacti, right? Cacti in the area that could, have a hard time getting past that digital signal and jamming these signals. So I think it would take a very strong piece of equipment rather than, something like the size of a iPhone, with some antennas on it. That does not rule out jamming. It lowers the confidence and is best fit for public evidence so far. We're going to hear from Morgan Wright. He says recovered, and this is an expert in this area, and we just actually saw him in the video just prior to this. Recovered porch video makes a close-range jamming blackout harder to square with the public evidence, and we've seen video in this. And Lisa Miller, another expert in this field, the video did not look glitchy, and objects in the suspect's pocket could be a radio rather than a jammer. And then Betsy Smith says, if the offender really planned around the jammer, that suggested more sophisticated and targeted operation than the front door behavior shown. Yeah, I mean, it looked very discoordinated or discombobulated when this said suspect came up to the door. We've talked about that before, and I want to get into more detail about that in my next live about Nancy Guthrie. I want to go back and really break down that motion and that movement of the suspect, because I always thought they were startled by the camera. Like they kind of didn't know it was there. And I always thought this motion, like trying to block the camera, but then it didn't make sense. I'm going to go back. I'm going to take weeds after I've been basically spotted on this camera. I'm going to put weeds up to block the camera. That didn't make a lot of sense either, but we'll get more into that at a future live. All right, moving forward. So again, hearing from Morgan Wright, and I like this explanation. He says, as you get closer with a jammer, the signal starts getting interfered with, he revealed. The closer you get to the source of the signal, which is the router with the Wi-Fi access point, then you might get a total blackout. Referring to residents who claim to have an issue with the footage, Wright said, if they say, well, I had an internet outage, it's got nothing to do with an RF jammer. That RF jammer would have to be high-powered military stuff to affect the neighborhood. So crazy stuff again. And then we have the new caution points. A neighbor with a wide out outage would likely require much more power than a small portable jammer. We talked about that. A visible pocket device can be handheld radio, the walkie-talkie instead of the jammer, and that was what we saw, and many people have speculated over it. The clear and recovered front door looks harder to urge for persistent blackout right at the entry point. Officials still have not publicly confirmed jammer use. So still talking about it. Okay, so we'll move on here. So the common causes of missing camera video, the ISP outage of the neighborhood could have been in maintenance, power dip, and battery depletion. I said battery. Why did it just say battery? Battery depletion. And then we have Wi-Fi interference or weak signal. Believe me, we've all been victim to that, right? The cloud subscription configuration issues, device firmware crash. I've had those before. Physical tampering, device removed, covered, or damaged. And we had a camera that was covered in this case and actually was pulled off, that front door camera. Investigators typically say other cameras, router logs, ISP outage reports, and timestamps, and that's how they get all this evidence and digital evidence together. So how tech leads get validated. A hypothesis like jamming is tested against whether other devices failed in the same area, whether any footage exits during the window, whether failures or intermediate versus complete, known coverage gaps. And this is why law enforcement asked many neighbors about the glitches. And that's why the FBI was seen over there, canvassing the area. They were there for a few hours the other day, talking to the next door neighbor again, looking up at a camera. And we're going to see that camera here in a minute in Brian Entin's reporting. All right, moving ahead here. So we have the experts and the quotes. And let me just do this real quick. We'll take a quick pause. Let's see. Let's see. Is there justices? I'm lucky to figure out my own Wi-Fi much more a jammer. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Looks like we have a new subscriber. Hello, Margaret. Thanks for subscribing. I appreciate that. Northwest Idaho said, first time on the channel. Everyone is so friendly. Hello, everyone. Well, thank you for being here, Margaret. I appreciate it. I have lots of content here on Nancy Guthrie. You can go to my homepage, click on that tab, and have all my investigative videos on Nancy Guthrie. Let's see. Ellie says, I'm not convinced the front door is the entry point. No forced entry, or it could be used to leave and take the camera. Absolutely. I mean, that theory's been thrown around. There's been the multiple persons theory in this, where there more than one person that was involved in this crime, and that very well may be. And that's the thing. Like, it's just, we don't know. And that's why we throw these theories out and speculate. All right. So moving on here, let's see. Retired Pima County SWAT commander Bob Krieger, I think it's Krieger, said detectives are getting closer every day, even if the public does not see an immediate breakthrough. Forensic analyst Joseph Scott Morgan likewise argued that from an investigator's standpoint, a month is not a long time. This is nowhere close to a cold case. So they're set on saying this is not a cold case. We're at 36 days now. There is a possibility, but as time goes on, I think the reality here is what? And this is the thing that we don't want to say. And I'm hoping that I'm wrong in this situation. But what is the one thing we don't want to say? 36 days have passed. We still can't find Nancy. We know that she's elderly. We know that she requires daily heart medication. We know that she has a pacemaker. Probably the stress alone has been a lot, right? And we might be at the reality that Nancy may be gone. That could be the reality of this. I hope not. Then we have Chris Nono Nanos says, Sheriff Nanos has said investigators are definitely closer and are working thousands of leads. Remember the other day when we heard about the said Kia Soul video? What did he say? I'm checking out hundreds and thousands of vehicles from that night. I'm like, that's a little bit of an overstatement, don't you think? I don't think there's hundreds of thousands of vehicles out at 2 o'clock in the morning driving around Tucson. I find that hard to believe. He also said release too much detail would be irresponsible if it risked the integrity of the case, which helps explain why public updates may feel thin. Heather says Sheriff Bobblehead. I love that. All right, moving on here. So apparent breaks that did not solve it. A man briefly detained early in the case was later cleared. A California man accused of sending fake ransom notes appeared unrelated to the abduction itself. Black glove found near the scene were traced by DNA to a nearby restaurant worker, but not the suspect. We talked about that in the beginning of this. These dead ends make the case feel stuck publicly, even while investigators keep working other evidence. What still may be happening behind the scenes? Craig Rogers, a retired FBI special agent, says, I'm confident there is a good amount of familiar research underway concerning the DNA samples found in the residence. I hope so. And we still know that DNA is still being processed as well. So why the quiet phase still matters? Authorities say that other DNA evidence is still in the lab analysis. The familiar research or investigative genetic genealogy, say that 5 times fast, is underway, and it would be great. It would generate leads, not proof on its own. Other future suspects would still need standard corroboration, and officials have not publicly confirmed the exact workflow. So we had the ambiguous loss plus audience exhaustion. AP framed the family ordeal as ambiguous loss. The trauma of not knowing whether a loved one is alive. I wouldn't even imagine going through that. I couldn't even imagine what Savannah and her family are going through at this point. We just saw the other day, she's returned to the Today Show. And I'm sure that was really hard. And like, how do you wake up and live with this every day, not knowing where your mom is? Who took my mom? Why did they take her? What is the meaning behind all of this? Will this case, and then the biggest thing is like, will this case ever be solved? Will we ever come to a conclusion? Will we ever have a suspect? Is this going to be a month from now? Is it going to be a year from now? Is it going to be 10 years from now? What is it going to be? Where is the break? When is it going to happen? I can only imagine what that family's going. I mean, I couldn't imagine what that family's go through. So is the loved one alive, injured, or gone, or having no clear resolution? At the time, newer reporting describes a public mood of fatigue and fading, hoping after weeks of headlines without an arrest. And I want to give a lot of credit to the journalists that are still down there. Brian Entin is still down there reporting. YouTube investigator JLR has been down there, amongst others. Michael Ruiz, who I follow on X, is still reporting on this case. So, there still is a lot of media attention down there, and hoping that we get a break. So it says, hope, let's see, Joseph Scott Morgan says, hope may be wanting more than interest, but that does not mean the case is cold. Investigators move on law enforcement timeline, not the public's. This is why they explain the family pain can intensify even while official updates become more limited. I can only imagine. Okay, what the public in the area can do responsibly. If you live in and around that area, if you're in and around Nancy's neighborhood, or even in and around Tucson, and you know something about this case or have seen something, the best thing to do, if you have any footage that has not been turned over, what you can do is preserve any camera footage from the relevant dates, times. Do not overwrite it. Write down the exact timestamps of the outages, offline alerts, or camera gaps, or if you have any camera footage that could be helpful in this case. If you live nearby, share the IP outage information, if any, and exact location, times with investigators. Do not publicly accuse cleared or unnamed people. Send tips to law enforcement instead. And you can always notify law enforcement by calling 1-800-CALL-FBI. And that's going to end my presentation. So I hope some of this cleared up a little bit more of the what is this Wi-Fi jammer. And let's do this. Let's go up to Brian Entin. He was out there the other day talking about this as well. And we'll get to see what the camera was in question. Here we go.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. Really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I really appreciate all the support. It is day 34 in the search for Nancy Guthrie. It's Friday today. And there's a really interesting development that I want to tell you guys about. There, at least investigators are looking into, the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Office. They have this task force now. They're looking into a possible internet outage situation in the area around Nancy's house around the time that she disappeared, that she was abducted, early morning hours of February.
One thing I noticed, look at the amazing support that's still there in the background, with all the yellow flowers. It looks like it's just getting larger by the day. And that's so amazing that people are still obviously in tune with this case and want this resolved, some kind of ending to it, some kind of capture of a suspect or suspects.
February 1st. And what's interesting is these two Ring cameras. These are from a neighbor's house. And right around the time that Nancy vanished, these Ring cameras, according to the people who live here, showed not available, which I'm told is very, very unusual. That hasn't happened before. Then they came back online. But during the time, and these are the cameras that are closest to Nancy's house, during the time that it is believed that Nancy was abducted, these specific cameras showed not available. The other cameras on the other side of the house apparently were still working, but these cameras showed not available. Now, I shot this video to show you the proximity to Nancy's house. You can see that there's all this desert in between. That's kind of the way that the houses are set up here. You know, they're all really, really spread apart, which I've told you guys before. But this is to kind of show you, when I zoom in from where the Ring cameras are back over to where Nancy's house is. It's not entirely close, but it's close enough. And what's interesting is if you look at this picture of the suspect, many have been wondering what this antenna looking device, or looks like an antenna sticking out of his pocket is. Some people have said walkie-talkie. Others have suspected it could be some kind of signal jammer, which could match up with this new information we have about this strange internet outage that may have taken out these two Ring cameras at this property close to Nancy. So we know that it is something that the FBI and investigators are now looking into. What's also interesting is where these Ring cameras are located. The people who live in this house, they tell me that at the same time all of this was happening, that Nancy...
look at this. I like this. Police scanner? Could be. Could be. You know, maybe it's connected to an ear pod, so it's not audible. I don't know. To me, it just looked like something that part of a utility pant, something part of that utility pant. I mean, it could be a strap that pulls out. I mean, I've had utility pants where it has like a little thing inside the pocket that pulls out and you hook your keys onto it so they don't fall out. You know, if you're hiking or doing something, like an activity, I've seen that before too. I mean, I don't know. Or, I mean, to me, and I have to go back and look at the video again, and we're going to do this anyway. We're going to break down this video again, but maybe that's, what do they call it? A drawstring on the bottom of that jacket, like when you can pull it tighter to you to keep it closer to you. Could be something like that, like the strings that pull out and have those little slidable adjustables on it that you can adjust and make the coat tighter. And it just probably has a little reflective like that, like the zipper. You see the zipper there, like here where that little reflective is. And then it's like, looks almost like it has that little reflective material there. I don't know. Just a theory I'm throwing out there. I got to look at it again when we go through the video. All right, let's play.
So we know that it is something that the FBI and investigators are now looking into. What's also interesting is where these Ring cameras are located. The people who live in this house, they tell me that at the same time all of this was happening, that Nancy was taken and that the Ring camera stopped working. Their dog alerted them to go outside, basically in the middle of the night, which they tell me is very, very unusual. This is not like typical of their dog to want to do that. And woke them up, and they went outside with the dog in the middle of the night, and the dog was actually looking in the direction of Nancy's house. Now, whether this is all connected, we don't know, but it is interesting because if there was a signal jammer used, would that have emitted some kind of frequency that would have disturbed the dog, that would have caused the dog to wake up and want to go outside? Again, we don't know. But we know that it is something that the FBI and the detectives are looking into. At least they've been asking other neighbors also if they had any kind of internet outage around the time that Nancy was abducted. I'm joined now by Eric Maldonado. He was with the Pima County Sheriff's Office for almost 3 decades, 29 years. He's also the author of the book, Unnecessary Evil, Echoes of the Badge. Eric, thank you for joining me again. You've been super helpful because you know this area so well, this neighborhood. You've worked burglaries in this neighborhood where I am. I'm outside Nancy's house now. The first thing I want to ask you about is, so one of the neighbors who lives basically behind Nancy, but you can see Nancy's house from his yard, their Ring cameras, two of the Ring cameras only on the back side of the house went out around the same exact time that Nancy was abducted. And I also just found out their dog woke them up during that time too, to go outside, which is highly unusual, they say. Like, the dog sleeps through the night all the time, and actually was looking in the direction
of
I'm
Nancy.
just kind of answer this. Mimi's talking about FOIAs. I do a lot of FOIAs here on my channel as well too. But I'm going to tell you, this case is it's in the hands of the FBI. I'm going to tell you, you're not getting any information about this case right now. You're not going to get a FOIA 911 call. You're going to get nothing regarding this case. Zero, zilch. And I can tell you this too. When something gets into the FBI hands, do you know how hard it is to FOIA and get information? I'll give you a relevance to this. I follow a case here on my channel of a guy that is actually actively in prison right now for embezzling over $6 million from clients. Okay. This happened well over almost 2 years now since he's gone to prison. And I know that there's body cam footage of his arrest, but it is in the hands of the FBI. Even though this person's incarcerated, even though this person is now actively serving his time, I FOIA'd to get that body cam footage to see what happened on the day of the arrest. The FBI is not giving it to me. And the reason is that there's not enough public interest, or it would do anything to help society by releasing this video. They're very strict on their cases. They're very strict on whatever evidence, calls, audio, anything that they have. Probably never going to get it. Probably never going to get it unless it's publicly released. All right, here we go.
What do you make of that?
I think that's a really good possibility. I think that signals detection. Listen, dogs are still probably the best home security system.
Amen.
Like their ability to hear things that we don't is just incredible. It's like they understand the disturbances in the forest. So the fact that signals were possibly jammed, and you take that and you put it basically at the same timeline when the dog is woken up and he's staring or she's staring in the area of Nancy Guthrie.
Yeah, actually, I just dropped a video today. You can check it out on my channel. I FOIA'd and got some indictments, and that was a case that I've been following here. The name on that case is Enrique Delgado Garcia, and you can check out that video on my channel if you want, just after this live stream. I just dropped it today. I do a lot of FOIAs on this channel. I get a lot of documents and a lot of FOIAs. All right, here we go.
Home. I think that's just more than just a coincidence. And there's technology out there that you can use, cell phone jammers that kind of just jam the cell phone activity, turn them off. There's there's another jammer that does Wi-Fi, and there's another jammer that basically sends signals to your Wi-Fi. We
just had some people come in, and I just want to give everybody an update. We're talking about the FBI and investigators that went back to Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood just a couple of days ago, and they were talking with neighbors about their Wi-Fi signals and their home security systems. If they had any disruptions during the certain time of when Nancy Guthrie was abducted, and we're actually looking at this video from Brian Entin. We just saw the cameras a couple of minutes ago, and we're talking with a former, I think he was a sergeant with the Pima County Sheriff's Department for over 25 years. So we'll continue to play through this and see what he says.
Your router system that the service is unavailable, and then it tricks your system to believing it. So your system then becomes unavailable, although it really isn't unavailable. So there's different types of technology out there. And I believe wholeheartedly, like, you know, if the dog is up and the dog is kind of acting out of character in the middle of the night when that dog typically sleeps throughout the night,
facts.
You know, that's more than just suspicious. I think that's a really good indication that someone was probably at Nancy Guthrie's home at that time.
Have you ever come across any signal jammers with the work that you did? I heard like sometimes maybe the cartel uses them.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I have not personally seen it in the field in the cases that I've handled. I was in criminal investigations for a while. I actually worked in the burglary unit for a little bit, but I did patrol for 25 years in a variety of different assignments in K-9 and in search and rescue, and then just primarily assigned to patrol. And I never saw that firsthand, but I do know that technology is out there. And here's the thing: I did some research on it before this meeting, and this is actually pretty cheap. Like you can get some of these jammers
Oh yeah,
for less
like
than
$5.
$50. So
I've
like
seen some for
on the
$5.
surface, it sounds like this like space age technology, like it's super complicated. Like it really isn't. Like you can probably pick it up on Amazon. You can definitely find it on the internet because I was searching for it earlier on, and you could find devices for less than $30. And then that kind of brought, that's kind of what got me thinking about it the last time we spoke was, there's a bunch of
Just still don't think it was a Wi-Fi jam to cause all that melee and activity on a certain amount of cameras that night. I think it would need stronger and more sophisticated equipment. Hey, if you haven't done this yet, I know there's about 60, 70 people watching right now. Smash that like button for me. I really would appreciate it. It helps push the stream out into the algorithm. All right, here we go.
Different theories about what possibly happened that night. And I have my theory. It doesn't mean that my theory is right. Like there's a bunch of, I think, viable theories out there, but sometimes the answer is the simplest answer. And it's sometimes just really right under your nose. And we kind of overcomplicate things, especially when we can't get that forensic evidence in a manner where we're used to getting it. Like, hey, we want to get it at least within the first week. But we're on a month, and we did get some video that Google kind of pieced together, and that was great. But like, where's the rest of the forensic data? Like, there isn't. So sometimes the answer is just pretty simple. Maybe it wasn't an abduction for ransom. Maybe it was what I believe it to be, which is a burglary gone bad. And then the question came up on the last interview, like, well, why, like, where is this cell phone data? And
yeah, I was just gonna say that too. Like, I would have thought the initial people of persons of interest, the only reason that would probably lead me, Carlos, and the other guy's name is, and his mom is slipping my mind, and maybe you guys can remember. But Carlos, we heard about him. We heard about some people that were stopped in a Land Rover, and it was processed. We heard the SWAT team go out, and I'm forgetting the names of the guy and his mom that were, the SWAT team went to their house. So I'm thinking like the reason that this probably gave probable cause was any of their cell phone data showing that they were in and around the neighborhood at that specific time? Was there activity on their phones at that specific time that led them to getting this information to go back and say, hey, there was some suspicious activity via these phones? And that's probably why there was probable cause to go out and speak with these people. And then they were obviously investigated and then cleared. Well, not cleared, but they were investigated. There's been not any public clearing yet. And you probably won't hear that because they're probably still investigating. So, that's very interesting too. We haven't heard much about CAST and cell phone data and towers. But I'm sure this is all angles and things that are being looked into. You're just going to find out where the tower signals are pinging, and you can start locating phones in that area and who was connected to those phones.
One of the things I brought up to you offline, and I texted you the other day about it, is like it is not outside the realm of possibility that the suspect is closer than what we possibly think they are. Like, they literally can live in a neighborhood. And people may say, well, who would do a burglary like in the neighborhood that they live in? I'm telling you, I've seen it because you don't expect it. And if there is something of value that you want in that home, it doesn't matter where you live. That would also kind of tie in why that missing connection between Nancy and the suspect, because that's what we've been looking for. Like, what is the connection between her and the abductor? Was it something personal? Was it targeted?
Amen. I talked about this in my presentation tonight.
Here we go. A burglary for specific reasons that they just wanted to target her and only her? Like it's obvious, like they knew that she was probably an elderly person, probably sleeping at night, doing a burglary during the day in that neighborhood would be entirely risky. Although burglaries most of the time occur during the day when people are at work. But this is an older area. You know, vehicle travel isn't as prevalent as it is on some of the more urban streets and neighborhoods. So people driving around and just dumping their car on the side of the road and then walking through, you know, backyards to kind of get to Nancy's home would have been highly suspicious, and it 100% probably would have been called in. But at night, the burglary then makes a little bit more sense. And her being elderly kind of, you know, it adds some legitimacy about the risk reward. Can they get in to the home undetected, take whatever it is that they want, and then leave? But something happened, an altercation, something happened inside. So if they wanted something of value or something that they perceived.
I always thought like the theory this too. I mean, could this, if this is a burglary, could this person go to the door and they're just doing basic, you know, late night burglaries? You know, all the lights are off in that neighborhood. We know how dark it gets around there. Maybe they had just, you know, their intuition saying, I don't feel like someone's here. This is the house that I'm going to hit. Or were they in that neighborhood, just like he was saying here? They kind of cased it. They knew that she was an elderly woman. This would be an easy target. Or possibly did they think that no one was home? There was no activity going on in the house. So this would be an easy hit, right? And you break in, and where's the first, you know, one of the first spots that a burglar is going to go to? The bedroom, because that's where the valuables are. That's where jewelry is. That's where watches are. That's where heirlooms are. Maybe there's a safe there. Maybe there's money. And they go into this room and they get startled because what? Nancy's home, and Nancy awakes, and then there's an incident inside the house and she gets hurt. And then she gets brought out in a panic moment, maybe from this burglar. But you got to start looking like, and I'm sure the FBI has been profiling this too, like maybe this person has tendencies of being a burglar, but has had assaults, or, you know, has done some prison time in the past for assault, that would have the willfulness to take her from her home. So, you know, that's just some things that I thought about too. All right, let's continue here.
Received a value, and Miss Guthrie was alerted when they made entry or while they were in the home or ransacking, you know.
I just said this.
You know, through her belongings, and they alerted her. And I think that is what prompted some sort of physical confrontation so that she wouldn't call 911. And then I think that's kind of proven with the blood spatter on the ground on the outside patio by the front door. So something violent happened inside.
Real quick, I just want to thank Jacqueline. Jacqueline, thank you so much for the $20 Cash App. I appreciate that. Thanks for supporting the stream tonight. I appreciate that.
Whether she was alive or not when she left, like, we don't know. I have my personal feelings about it. You know, I don't think that she was alive when she left. And if she was, you know, like, I hate to say this, but I think the Guthries already understand this, and they've come to grips with this, and they've wrapped their head around it. Is even if she was alive when she left the home, I don't think she was alive much longer. I think she was. I think she probably had 48 hours probably in her.
It's interesting what you say about the suspect.
Yes, it has
being
been.
Really
it hasn't
close,
been. Hang on. And I knew this was going to come up tonight. So there was a body in the canal in Phoenix. Has it been identified? I don't know if it's been identified, but I can tell you this. There was a released statement today. I think I saw it about an hour or two ago, that it is unrelated to this case. It is unrelated to this case. And I'll get some clarification here. I'm going to get a report on that while we continue to play this and
then
verify
think about
it for
that they
you.
could just be in the neighborhood. Right. But I interviewed these digital forensic experts yesterday, cell phone experts who do the tracking and everything.
Yeah.
And they were saying, you look for unusual patterns, so, a phone that's in the neighborhood that's never normally in the neighborhood, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And they said they were thinking the same thing as you, because if it was someone in the neighborhood, it wouldn't stand out. And that could be why we're not seeing them track someone yet.
Yeah, literally, and that's what I had.
Okay, so let me get that for you. Let's see. A woman's body found was in a canal in Phoenix, prompting speculation over a possible connection to the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. The remains were found Friday, more than 100 miles from Tucson, where the 84-year-old went missing on February 1st. Quote, details on the call indicated that it was an adult female who was in the nearby canal bank and who was unresponsive, the police said in a statement. When officers arrived, they located the woman, who was ultimately pronounced deceased on the scene. Goes on to say, Phoenix police have yet to release any identifying information about the woman they have found, but the Pima County Sheriff's Department said in a statement to Fox Digital News that they have not been alerted that there's any connection to the Guthrie case. The slow pace of the investigators have frustrated Guthrie loved ones, including their daughter, Today's show host Savannah Guthrie, who has offered a $1 million cash reward for information for the safe return or her recovery. Let me see if I can get a little bit more information on that.
You're searching for this elusive answer. Like you're just waiting for oh, this is why we couldn't get this information. Like they were so sophisticated in their planning, and they did this and they did that. Well, maybe they just live in a neighborhood and the cell phones they used actually.
It's pretty much what everybody's reporting at this point.
Are within that geo fencing. Like it's supposed to be in that neighborhood, and it's not it doesn't stand out. Like there's really nothing suspicious, and they still could have turned on their phones on or off. But I think that sometimes the answer is just really simple, and we in law enforcement, I have seen it. We overcomplicate the end result. It's kind of like confirmation bias, where you have an idea of what the end result is going to be. You have this, these people are sophisticated, these people are smart, these people they're cartel, or this was a ransom for money. Well, if you wholeheartedly believe that, you run into some jeopardy there. And you can easily allow your investigation to kind of drift in that, to that end result, when in reality, the answer might be a lot simpler. And sometimes you just got to take a step back and take a breath and realize that, listen, let's look at all the possibilities, even the most simple ones.
I think I'm going to agree too. I'm going to agree with Ellie. I think she was taken alive as well too. I do. I think she was taken alive too. Because there was no drag marks. I mean, if she was dead and she was bleeding out like the blood that we saw in the front door, for me, you would have to drag that person out of the house. There would be drag marks through that blood. I think the blood that we saw might have been from maybe a hit in the head or hit in the face, and blood, maybe a bloody nose, and it made those droplets on the front of the walkway.
As the simple ones are sometimes the most legitimate answers to the riddles, and this is honestly a big riddle.
When you worked burglaries, was it ever someone really close by?
So I've worked burglaries assigned to the burglary unit. I've worked burglaries, obviously on patrol. So I've been to thousands of burglaries. Like those calls, they're a dime a dozen. They occur all day long, every single day. On average, the sheriff's department responds to about 400 calls for service a day. So a large part of that are burglaries that are either in progress or past burglaries. Most of them are, based on my experience, I would say probably past burglaries where someone goes to work and they come home and they realize how the door's been popped open, or someone broke the back window, made forced entry, and then they report their burglary. But on average, I would say that most people are not from the immediate area. But I have seen a fair share of burglaries where the suspects lived in the same neighborhood. So I just don't think it can be discounted.
When you were saying about how people wouldn't come in here during the day to try to do that, I mean, you know this neighborhood well. Like the neighbors all kind of know each other from what I can tell. They have each other's phone numbers. Even today, there was one neighbor telling me, "Oh, I noticed this kind of car back on that day that was parked in the cul-de-sac." That like they notice things here. You know what I mean? Like I would think if even if someone was just parked on the side of the road a couple blocks away to walk to Nancy's, I would think that someone would have probably noticed it. You know, it's a lot of older people.
But at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's the thing. That's the question. With complete blackout in that neighborhood, I just don't think that there's going to be many people that are going to see I don't know. I don't live in that area, so maybe they do. You know, maybe there are a bunch of people that are up at that time at night, and they you know, they're, I don't know. You know what I mean? I still think it's obviously no one really saw anything because we don't have a suspect. We're 36 days in. So, I mean, maybe he's just referring to like something earlier. You know, did we see someone come in that neighborhood? Did we see someone, you know, earlier that week or that month or a couple of months ago that seemed sketchy? I don't know. I just still feel like it's someone that has a connection to this neighborhood, someone that knows the activities that go on in and around this neighborhood or these neighborhoods. So either it's a burglar that has been casing these neighborhoods, these homes, and it was a burglary that went wrong, or this is just someone that is just super connected to the Guthries in some way, either, like I said, a maintenance worker, a relative. I don't know. You know, any of that could be a possibility. It could be a possibility. A friend, an old friend, a relative. It is just, it's bizarre. It's really bizarre, and I still can't put my thumb on it.
People that like are home all day notice everything, you know?
Yes. Yes. So that's why I believe that this particular burglary, whatever the motivating factor for it was, occurred at night, right? Because like, if you want to, burglaries are crimes of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to get caught doing a burglary. It is extremely risky to do it when you know someone is at home. However, she's retired.
How about this, Ellie? How about this? Just like I said, the scenario. The burglar gets in the house. What did I say? What is one of the first places that a burglar is going to go to? They're going to go to the bedroom. That's where watches are. That's where jewelry is. That's where cash could be. That's where family heirlooms could be. Okay. They walk into that room and then they get startled. There's someone here. And now that's a burglary that's gone wrong. There's a confrontation inside the house. This burglar panics and they remove Nancy from the house because that's your witness. So I don't know. Maybe they got in there and took the mask off and she saw this face. Anything's a possibility, but I would just think, like, if someone caught me in their house, the first thing I would do is this. If I was a burglar, you know, I would run and get the fuck out of there. Excuse my language. Or you're going to neutralize this person in front of you and subdue them in some way, right? And you're not going to hang out because that could be, you know, could be suspicious at that point. So you're going to want to get out of there at that instant. So I don't know, you know? All right, let's go.
Like, she's always at home, you know, with the exception for when she goes to church or when she goes, you know, to meet her daughter or whatever for dinner and stuff like that. Like, she probably 90% of her life, or I'll give it a little less, 80 to 90% of her life is probably spent inside of the home. That leaves a very small window of opportunity for the suspect. And suspects, just like cops, like, they evaluate patterns or life. So, like, if I'm trying to catch a known suspect and I'm observing them and I don't want to arrest them where they currently are because it's just dangerous for me and for other people, I'll establish a pattern of life. Like, what do they do? What's their normal everyday routine? What is the best opportunity for me to go make contact with that individual where it doesn't pose as great a risk to public safety and to law enforcement and to the individual as well. So I'll look for patterns of life. Well, burglars also do patterns of life. They target their prey, their victims, but trying to establish a pattern of life in that Guthrie neighborhood is so difficult because, like you said, everyone knows which vehicles belong and which vehicles don't belong. There is no like parking on, like, you could park on the road, but let's be realistic. Other than the media, how often have you just seen vehicles parked on the side of the road when there's a accessible driveway? Like, you don't see that like in a track home neighborhood. On a track home neighborhood, you'll see vehicles parked on the side of the road. Like, that wouldn't be suspicious at all. But you go into the Guthrie neighborhood, someone that's parked on the side of the road is really odd, because there's if that vehicle belonged in the neighborhood, that vehicle would be in a driveway, not on the side of the road. The only vehicles that would probably stop on the side of the road would be like utility workers, Amazon drivers, FedEx, UPS, stuff like that. So someone who is targeting Miss Guthrie, who intends to do a burglary, would have a difficult time, I believe, establishing a pattern of life, understanding what her daily habits are during the day. So doing that at night would be more advantageous to them, which brings me to the other theory I had, which is maybe these people are literally from their neighborhood, because if they're from her neighborhood, the establishment.
And I know everybody's saying, burglars don't take it. I'm just throwing this theory out there. If this is a burglary that went wrong, that's why I want to look at the profile of this person. That's why I want to look. There's more to the profile of this person. Listen, there's a lot of scenarios. There's a lot of scenarios in this. Was someone hired to do this? I know that. That's like the ultimate theory that's out there. Okay. And then you have to figure out the who and the why, right? And then if we just take the burglar angle of this, and I've said this could be a burglary. They go in, they get startled. Here we are, fight or flight. They go into fight mode. Something happens to Nancy. Now they get really freaked out and they take her and hide her. That's why I want to try to understand the profile of this person, because if they're doing a burglary and they have the propensity for violence, like maybe they have a violent past, it's not going to take much for that person to assault someone and then maybe get panicked and take her out of that home because they don't want to leave witness. And again, that's just a theory that I'm throwing out there. It's why it's like, I want to know, like, who is this friggin' person? What is their background? Have they been to jail? Are they a criminal? Is this a first-time offense? What are they doing this? Who did this? Who paid them? These are all the things that go through my mind. And I'm sure they all go through yours as well, too. All right, let's keep playing on here.
Of the patterns of life becomes a little bit more. You can drive by the homes unsuspectedly. You already know where she lives. Know her daily routine. You know that she's elderly. So not to say that these people are 100% from their neighborhood, but I think that that's something that could be looked at and shouldn't be ignored.
I'm just trying to think about motive, though, and now that we bring the possibility of a signal jammer, I mean, would a burglar really be that sophisticated around here with just a regular burglary, like just robbing some old lady or burglarizing some old lady in the middle of the night? Wouldn't that?
All right, I got to pull at the top. I'm asking, was this a burglary gone wrong or a hired person? You be the judge. You be the judge and jury. You go. And then we'll look at the poll here in a minute.
Isn't it a little too sophisticated?
Yeah, no, I'll give you the quick answer. No, most burglars are idiots. I'm just being flat out honest with you. Most of them are
they're probably
idiots.
Sloppy, right?
Most of them, their motive for burglary is to convert that to money so that they can pay bills, buy dope, spend money recklessly. Like that is the motive for 99.9% of the burglars, right? Now, if the burglars knew who they were burglarizing, if they knew it was Nancy Guthrie and she was related to Savannah Guthrie because maybe they lived in the neighborhood or they didn't for whatever reason, they would understand that there probably is going to be a greater look at this on the law enforcement side. So let's maybe take some greater precautions and use a signal, a jammer for either Wi-Fi or for cell phone.
Since you know Tucson so well,
yeah.
Sorry, is your son? Is the sun coming in? Yeah.
I'm just.
You're good. I'm just trying to think. Are there gangs here? Are there organized burglar groups here? Anything like that?
So we would call them like a burglary, like a rip crew, burglary rings. Like there are people who are just associated with each other through other criminal offenses. Like to say, like, okay, so let's talk about gang activity. Are there gangs in Tucson? Yes. There are gangs in Tucson. There are gangs in Midwest, America, in the most rural areas where you don't think there would be gang activity. There's gang activity. So are there gang activity? Yes. There's
a lot of gang activity in Arizona. Specifically, I've heard a lot of it in Phoenix. It's pretty heavy there.
Gangs that are associated with Mexican cartels, probably more prevalent in Tucson because of its location.
Close to the border, yeah.
Absolutely. Based on my experience, when I first started, gangs were
real quick, I get to this. Karen, $10. Thank you. Says, Brian, play the videotape interview Brian Entin had with the retired FBI profile. I think I've done that one already. I think I did that one in an earlier stream. If not, we can tackle that on another night. I've been trying to keep my streams down to about 1 hour and 20. There's no sense of doing a stream for 3 hours. I like 90 minutes, and I've always tried to keep streams to 90 minutes. We got about another, 10, 13 minutes in this. So it's going to be perfect timing in this. But I'll go back and look at that, but I think I've already done that. And I do appreciate the 10, but if not, we can look into that. Okay, let's keep going on here.
We're more prevalent
here
in the 90s and early 2000s than they are right now. What I think you see now is that there are associations, affiliations, people who just are from the same circles. Maybe you wouldn't identify them as a gang because they're not claiming a name or a color or a specific area in town, but they're a ring of burglars. They're a ring of criminals. But there are gangs in Tucson. They still exist. The old ones still exist, but they were definitely more prominent in the late 90s, early 2000s when I worked, where we were talking about blood and Crip activity. Like you would see different sets throughout Tucson. There used to be a lot of drive-by shootings. Like you don't see that as much nowadays, but crime still exists. So although these specific set gangs aren't around as much, there are still people who run in the same circles, and whether you call it a gang or not, they're still connected to one another for a common goal or common interest. So burglars tend to run together.
Interesting.
Some of these burglars literally know each other from childhood, from school, or they've done time together, or or it could be something as simple as they know each other through other connections, like through narcotic connections and through different criminal nexuses. And then that's how they become connected and they start.
I'm going to give a lot of credit. I mean, Brian Entin is fucking great anyway, but this is how an interview should be conducted. And this is what I always say. The best interviews are what? As you as the host, shut the fuck up and let the person that you're interviewing talk. That's why Joe Rogan's show, and I love Joe Rogan. I wish I could just even have a smidget of his success. That's why his podcast is the #1 podcast on the planet, He gets guests in and just listens to them talk and then gives them a little bit of guidance along the way. I love these interviews. I mean, Brian knows they don't want to hear from me right now. They want to hear from the expert that I'm talking to. And this is like perfect interview. So good. Because I want to hear what he has to say. And Brian's just guiding him along the way. It's phenomenal. Phenomenal interviews. Great. Love it.
Working together. You know, when my last year or two in Canine, like I remember doing a burglary, working a burglary in the Canine unit in a very rural area of Tucson, up in Napa Valley, and it was a burglary ring. It was a known burglary ring of 5 or 6 individuals, and they did a burglary of a residence where the elderly female victim, she was at the hospital and she was admitted at the hospital. She was staying at the hospital, and they posed as maids and cleaners. Like, and when I mean they dressed like that, they had mops and buckets, like they actually disguised themselves as workers. And
I'm going to give you a quick story here. Ready? I used to work in the jewelry and fine watch business for about 16 years. And I had a girl that came to work for a company that I recruited her. She came to work for my company at the time. And down in Connecticut, where I worked, there were theft rings that were going on. So they were traveling around to specific areas in Connecticut and hitting all these jewelry stores. Well, listen to this one. The day before they hit this place that she worked at a fine jewelry and watch store. Before they hit her, a guy shows up and acts as a maintenance worker and gets access to the back room. He ends up fiddling with the security system and leaves. Over that next night, they come in and access the building through the roof and get down into the building through the roof and steal just about every damn thing that was inside that store. And the reason that they hit this particular location was because it was so close to the Interstate 95. It was literally like a hop, skip, and a jump over a fence. They had a wait out car on the other side. They hit it in the middle of the night. They basically stole everything that was inside the store. They busted out the front door to get out. They hop the fence, jump in the car, and leave. And she shows up for work the next day, glass shattered everywhere, walks into the business and is like, holy shit, there's nothing here. They took everything. Come to find out, they traced these people, ended up tracking them down, and they were hitting businesses through New York, Connecticut, and Jersey. And basically they all got caught up like a year later in this investigation. And it was a massive capture of all these people that were all working together in this kind of like theft ring. Crazy story. They didn't recover any of the merch, but they ended up catching all these people, and essentially they all went away. So it was nuts. Yeah, look at that. See, this Jeannie says, I remember that. She lived in Connecticut. Look at this. Yeah, true story. True story. I think they caught them in New Jersey. I think they ultimately, either all of them or some of them, they ended up catching them. But they stole millions and millions and millions of dollars of jewelry and fine watches. And obviously we're selling this all in the third market. And it probably, the funny thing about it is these thieves are so smart. Sometimes what they do is they'll hit all these places and then recirculate and sell this stuff back through jewelry like the jewelry district in New York. So they might not obviously go back to the specific location that they hit, but they'll go back to the guy down the street and sell some of the diamonds and watches that they stole probably from that guy, the guy up the street a year ago. And that's how all these theft rings work. But they ultimately end up catching, I think some or all those people that were involved. All right, let's try to finish up this video here.
That was weird. Called the lady at the hospital, said, no, that person doesn't belong there. And we show up, they scatter, they run. A couple of people get dog bit, and then we track down the rest, a couple of days later. But yeah, there are definitely burglary rings in Tucson, just like there is with auto theft, because of the closeness to the to the Mexican border. Auto theft in Tucson is incredible, and those rings are large.
Is there anything about this situation at Nancy's house that stands out and could,
Yeah, I was
when
near
you
New
think
London.
about
I
these
lived down near New
burglary
London.
rings or the gangs? Is there any like signs that it could be one that you're familiar with?
To be honest with you, no. The honest answer is no. I do think that we have to really question what's been so difficult in figuring out who these people are.
Who these people are.
I want like the listeners to understand this.
Excuse me.
When someone is caught for burglary, they're not caught for their first burglary. Like literally, they have committed a minimum, in my experience, of probably 5 to 7, maybe 8 burglaries, and they've been successful, which is why they continue burglarizing. Burglarizing people. It doesn't mean that people don't get caught on the first burglary, because they do, but the vast majority of people who get caught committing a crime, that's not their first criminal offense. So do I think these people are associated with a specific crew? No, I don't think that that's how you figure it out, although I think you can use that intel. I think you can look at burglaries in the neighborhood. I think you can look at your players, the ones who are repeat offenders. I'm sure that, or I hope that has been done. Are they in jail? Are they not in jail? What's their activity? Have we set up surveillance on them? Have we looked at them? But nothing was stolen from the property, which is the other issue. So when I did my last interview, I looked at some of the comments online, and there was a lot of questions about, well, if it was a burglary gone bad, then why didn't they steal anything? And the answer is as simple as this. The priorities shift. If you're committing a burglary and you want to rip someone off for money or for jewelry, whatever, and you get detected and that person's in the home and a struggle ensues and it becomes violent, stealing something at that point is the worst thing that you can do. It's the dumbest thing you can do.
Who said that, chat? Who said that, chat? I know a lot of you disagree with me, but that's what I said. That would not be the priority at that point.
Because burglars, they have to offload. Like, burglars don't like steal stuff and then decorate their home with the stuff that they stole.
They sell it.
Like, they pawn it. They sell it at the swap meet. They do it on Craigslist. They sell it, within a circle of friends. Like, they offload this stuff and they liquidate it,
trade
so
it
that
for
they
drugs,
can get money and use that money for whatever it is that they want to use it for. Stealing something from Nancy's home that is identifiable would be a liability, especially if the sheriff's department or the feds were able to narrow down a suspect. If they did a warrant, for example, and they found items that belong to the home, well, guess what? You did it. It's as simple as that. If you pawn something, you have to leave your ID, thumbprint. All of a sudden, you're attached to the Guthrie crime. So stealing something at that point isn't the priority. The priority is making sure that they don't get caught. The only way to make sure that you don't get caught is to take the evidence of the crime with you. And that evidence, unfortunately, is Miss Guthrie.
I mean, just the flip side of that, though, wouldn't that make it more complicated? Like, you're now taking the body with you. Like, you now have to figure out what to do with it. I mean, and I don't want to say body. Maybe hopefully she was alive. But, I would think the instinct would be like, we got to leave that here and get the hell out of here.
Okay. If you leave, if there was a struggle, and these guys, hey, they have seen 20/20 in 48 hours. Like, they know how criminals get caught, and they get caught through DNA. What has DNA? Nancy. She has the DNA of the suspect on her.
Yep.
If you don't want to get caught, you take her with you. It's not like they're going to scrape her fingernails for the skin that may have gotten caught under her fingernails in a struggle or touch DNA. Like that's a real thing. And if they're remotely smart, like they're not smart, but they're street smart, and they know what's going to get them caught. And they know, everyone knows DNA. Like it's out there. Every criminal.
This guy's awesome. I'd love to get him on my show and talk about Nancy Guthrie. Maybe I can find a contact for him. If anybody knows where I can get a contact, this guy, I'd love to get him on the show. He's really, really good. He's very knowledgeable, and he works for the Pima County Sheriff's Department. So very knowledgeable with that area. I'm sure they probably leaned into him and talked to him about this.
America understands that DNA is what ties you to the crime. Everyone knows that you can't leave DNA on scene. Sometimes you do because you don't know any better. You didn't really think things out. Listen, they had their hoodie on, they had the gloves on, like they were protected. There was no DNA, I'm assuming, on the outside of the door that came back to an individual, whether they were in CODIS or not. They couldn't find any relevant DNA inside the home that we know of. The gloves turned up nothing. The only thing that ties someone to the crime is literally the body itself. She is the crime scene. And if they got into it, and I hate to speculate like this, but let's be realistic. If they got into a struggle and Nancy became incapacitated, like honestly, like why wouldn't you take her? Like leaving her there I think is too risky. No one, these guys, I'm telling you, they do not want to go to prison. They will do anything and everything to avoid apprehension from law enforcement. And the safest way to do it is to take the body with her. They already committed a pretty serious crime. If they went inside someone's home to burglarize it and they committed an assault, that's an additional assault, that's an aggravated assault. If it turned deadly inside, right? Let's just say, like, and when we think about deadly, we always assume like, oh, someone got shot or someone got stabbed. Hey, sometimes literally a altercation with someone, and because she's elderly, if she falls on the ground and hits her head, like that could be a fatal wound. Like when you're at that point in the game and you realize, holy crap, I'm in real trouble now. The only way to avoid that trouble is to take the body with you. Like, because I think everyone at this point has kind of looked at the ransom and said, that was just bogus. That was people. I think that was people just leading.
Yeah, I do too. I agree with that, because the whole crypto thing, that was someone just looking for a paid opportunity at that point with the whole crypto thing. That's how I felt about that. It was just so weird. They go to the biggest, like, National Enquirer type of, news media outlet where they know that that TMZ is going to love this and salivate it and talk about it. And it's TMZ. And, you get these 5, letters, and they changed, and it was supposed to be this amount of money. Now they want this and that. And they're putting down the demands, and then nothing happens. That's how I kind of feel about it. And now we're not hearing anything of it anymore. So, that person or people that were doing that apparently got burnt out.
Law enforcement down the trail. I think those people were sophisticated because the FBI couldn't find them, but they did find a person in California with the fake ransom and Bitcoin and all that stuff, right? So I think that those were two separate things, and I wholeheartedly believe that the reason why that Nancy's body is not there is because they know that the body is what ties them to the crime.
Based on what you know in the area, and again, I hate to I hope she's alive. I mean, I know you do too, and
Of course.
miracles
I hope
happen.
I'm wrong. I hope I'm the biggest idiot in the world, honestly.
Yeah, of course. But assuming she's not, and again, I hate to be like this, but I do want to know. I mean, where do people dispose of bodies around here? Does that happen? Is there a certain area? Is there a certain place you think people should be looking?
Well, Arizona is vast. The desert is vast.
I'm going to say there's a line. It's a line from the movie Casino that says, the desert has many holes. And I'm sure that you guys know what I'm talking about here. I'll get his name. And Ellie's asking who is this gentleman that Brian's interviewing. I'll get his name before we close up here. I'm sure it's down in the description. I forgot his name because we've been talking so much through this, but let's keep playing here.
It is, well, when people dump bodies, and I'm just telling you the God's honest truth of 29 years of police work. When people dump bodies, commit murders, and they actually dump the body and the body's not on scene, they dump the body in the desert in places where, you can't find them.
Right.
Like, unless you know or have an idea of where to look, like, you won't be able to find them. Another way where how people dispose of bodies, unfortunately, are through burn pits. And it's not just here in Tucson. Like, if you look at murders across the United States, there have been a ton of bodies that were burned in a fire pit, because that you lose pretty much all the DNA except for bone fragmentation, which could tie you back to the body. But I have seen cases in Tucson where people have been in burn pits. I have seen bodies buried in the desert. I've seen bodies buried in cement in commercial areas. And that's just due to the criminal nexus that was associated with those specific crimes. So when someone wants to hide someone, they're going to hide them really good. It's not like we have a raging river where you can just throw a body in a body of water or anything like that. Like that's not going to happen here, right? Also, a body decomposes. So if it's going to decompose, unfortunately, that creates a very horrible smell. No one's going to place a body so close, if they're smart and they don't want to get caught, so close to where it could be located, because, when something smells weird, let me go investigate that, right? So there are people who go missing. Like, I was in a search and rescue unit. There are people go missing and they never get found.
Chelsea Grimm. Chelsea Grimm, she went missing just in Ash Fork, Arizona. That's probably on a map, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours north of where Nancy went missing.
And we search for them
missing
a lot. And those searches are still going on. They're continuous based on more information that comes in. But I have been out on scene with one dead body, and we know that the other one has walked off, and we knew the direction where they walked off, and we never found that body. We could never find it. It's just literally looking for a needle in a haystack. So, like, I hate to paint a gory, uncomfortable picture, because I don't want to do that. Like, I honestly hope that, like, I'm just like the biggest idiot in the world, and that we find Nancy and she's alive and I'm proven wrong. Like, I hope that that's the case. But I think the Guthries know that. They've made statements indicating that they've accepted that is the reality. Like she is not alive, and what they want is they just want her to come home. And when they say that, they mean her remains.
Right.
But if you committed a crime like that, you're not sending anyone any remains. And you're not even going to tell them where those remains can be located. Like, you just can't, if you're a bad guy, you can't risk anything being traced back to you. So, like, if I was a detective in a unit, my educated guess would be that she's probably somewhere in the desert, or she's found herself, unfortunately, in a burn pit. And let's just hope to God that she was dead before any of that happened.
Yeah.
Really appreciate Eric for taking the time to talk with me. He's always so interesting to talk to, especially because, he's not just an expert from another place, but he actually worked in Pima County for almost 30 years for the sheriff's office and worked
I'm gonna try to reach out to him
in particular for a long time. So he has a really interesting perspective. We'll stay on top of everything here. Let you know if anything develops. Again, really appreciate you guys for checking out my videos, for following me throughout this whole case. I can't believe it's now day 34.
This time.
It's crazy.
36 now.
It's been 34 days, but I'll keep you guys posted and I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, he's great. Brian Entin's great. I was reading a tweet from him today. He said he wasn't really feeling too well. I just said, dude, you need to get some rest. Like, you work really hard and you deserve everything, all the accolades. Such a great reporter. And, I just use examples of that, of great reporting, of someone that strives to, be like. He's very, very good at his job. And I love following his work. So you're the best, Brian Entin. You are the best out there in the field. Okay, everybody. I think this is going to sum up our presentation for tonight. I'm going to be honest with you. I've thought about switching my Sundays to an earlier time. I'm probably going to end up doing that. And still keeping Monday, Wednesdays at 8 o'clock. So I'm probably thinking that I'm going to do that. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And there's a lot of great content here on the channel, of course. You guys can check out. If you're interested in any of the local cases, I have a video that I just dropped today, and I'll drop it here, about 4 indictments against troopers that were training at a Massachusetts State Police Academy, and they have been indicted a few weeks ago in the death of a trooper. His name is Enrique Delgado Garcia, and I really would appreciate if you guys can jump on that video and just check it out. Leave a comment down there. It really helps push that video along. Tomorrow night, for Monday night, I think I'm going to do some Epstein coverage. There's been some new developments in the Epstein files, so I think I'm going to jump on that. I hope that you guys will all come over and join the stream. If not, you can catch it out on replay. And again, we're just testing some things here on the channel. Channel's been recalibrating. I'm having a ton of fun diving into my metrics and hanging out with all of you guys. And, listen, LTL Media continues to grow. And that's what's been a really fun process about this. And I've said it on day one. I don't care if there's one person here or there's 8,000 people here. I have a lot of fun doing this. I really enjoy YouTube, and I enjoy hanging out with all of you on the live streams and going through this stuff. And that's what makes these streams great. And I love all the active feedback. You guys have been great. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for tonight. I'm going to end this live. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be covering some Epstein files coverage of some recent developments, and you're going to want to catch that out and check it out. All right, everybody. I hope everybody has a great night. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you're finding this video in the algorithm, and I'll see everybody soon. Take care. Bye-bye.